150, 400, 7,000, 10,000 hours. In total, I've spent more than 2 years of my life behind a video game. That's massive. And I'm not the only one. Video games are more mainstream than ever, everyone's becoming a gamer. Back then, people mocked the antisocial geek lost in their own world. Today we watch them for hours, we finance them, and even admire them on stage. From esports to mobile games, we're all in. But is it really a passion? Does it make us happy? Or is it more like a prison, the gaming disorder, as specialists say? In the end, why do we play? My first game was Dofus, an MMORPG. That stands for Massively Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game. The idea is quite simple. Create a character that levels up, becomes stronger, fights enemies, earns money with jobs or by finishing quests. Basically click, click, and click again. I started Dofus when I was 9 years old, and like many kids, I wasn't really allowed to go outside aside from school hours. When I discovered online games, it was like unlocking a new kind of freedom and a space to connect. I was home alone, but surrounded online. I quickly fell into this virtual world where I met hundreds of people every day and grew up alongside them. At just 9 years old, I built a thriving business selling Amakian bread and became rich. In a stage of life where you have no responsibilities, I wanted some. Through Dofus, I felt like I was growing up, succeeding. It was the joy of quick and easy accomplishment, the feeling of progressing. And after each hour spent online, I felt it stronger. It's crazy how good that in-game progress can feel. For me, like for many, that feeling was built on one mechanic: farming. Farming means repeating the same actions over and over again to accumulate value, whether it's leveling up, crafting gear, or earning currency. Basically, you turn off your brain and keep clicking for hours, getting a heavy hit of dopamine as the number rises. And time goes by way too fast. Because that's what Dofus is all about too. I haven't been going to school for several weeks. I only sleep a few hours a day and I don't go out anymore. I'm 22 and very addicted to Dofus. There's all the symptoms of addiction: night visions, night flashes, powerlessness, professional failure. Have you ever dreamt of your favorite game? Maybe in a healthy way, you just have a good time. Or maybe you're sinking into addiction and the illusion that your life, your only source of happiness, is this video game. The definition of an addiction is as follows: very strong dependency on an harmful substance, resulting in compulsive behavior. If the game is becoming harmful, if your playing time is affecting your quality of life, then I'm afraid you've already crossed the line. For Dofus player, this harmful motivation is the feeling of advancement, evolution, and return on investment. It leads to disconnection to the point of rejecting the responsibilities and difficulties of real life. The line between exhilarating leisure and avoidance mechanism is a fine one, and for some players it can lead to real difficulties. Luckily for me though, Dofus is a well-oiled machine and was a huge part of my day-to-day routine, but it didn't completely cut me off from my real life. I was living two lives, the one behind my screen and the one outside of it. And these two worlds, even though distinct, didn't eat each other up. During the day I'd hang out with my school friends, in the evening with my in-game friends. I was happy in both. And with the old stereotype of the geek, or more precisely the girl geek, I wanted those worlds to be apart. Some motivations for gaming are more harmful than others, and I think what sets me apart from the stories I just shared is that if I played the game for 9 years, it wasn't because I wanted recognition or to achieve something in the game. It was for the people I met. While many players wanted to be the best, to take on others in PvP, I preferred chatting for hours, typing or on voice chat. The game opened me up to all kinds of people, of every age, belief and mindset. I learned to understand others. I developed what's known as emotional intelligence based on 4 pillars: recognizing your emotions and those of others, understanding them, using them and managing them. That's a vital skill, especially in MMORPGs, where collaboration is key. And you may even develop some form of leadership. In Dofus, there are guild systems, large groups of players, either open or closed. The creators of those groups define rules, goals, and entry requirements. If this vaguely reminds you of how a company works, you've understood everything. My first applications, my first layouts, my first interviews were all related to getting into a Dofus guild. And once inside, some, like me at the time, wanted to climb the ranks in responsibility and in status. At 13, I used emotional intelligence, diplomacy and strategy to rise from on trial to right-hand man, number 2 in the guild. And the ultimate goal, creating my own organization and becoming a guild leader. We help each other, feel included and appreciated, end up spending more time online than with others in real life. I know it sounds toxic, but to me it was just logical and practical. You're at home, you turn on your PC and your friends are there. At first I only made acquaintances, but over the years I built real connections, to the point where I felt closer to people I only knew by a username than to my school friends. On the internet, it's often easier to open up. There's less judgment about looks, intelligence, how you speak. In video games, everyone's equal, or nearly. I kept some Dofus friends for years, even decades, a close-knit group formed, but one day we had done everything the game had to offer. They decided to quit. After 9 years, I too had seen it all, so I chose to follow the only thing that kept me there, my friends. That's when I discovered another type of game and another type of addiction, of the same intensity, but for very different reasons. Competitive games. In Dofus, to level up, you just had to play more. It's a twisted but satisfying mechanic. In competitive games, it's different. Playing more helps, yes, but you also have to be better. This kind of game can be super unforgiving. Some people pick up mechanics easily, train efficiently and progress fast. Others struggle to keep up, slowly catching up by racking up more and more hours. Of course, there's two types of gamers. The casual gamers, the one who plays to have a good time, often driven by fun and teamwork, and the triader, which is pretty self-explaining. The one who plays to improve, to compete, to prove to others or to themselves that they're capable. Studies show that some players, due to issues outside of gaming, lack self-esteem or confidence and find in video games a place where they're respected, admired. This status, power through gaming, doesn't come out of nowhere. It's fueled by streamers and pro players who found fame and fortune through their keyboard skills. These star players encourage their community to improve, to become like them, and the games themselves are full of systems that pushes us to try again, and again, and again. Rank resets every 4 months, rewards based on time spent in-game, amateur competitions where you can earn real money by playing. It's a whole ecosystem pushing us to play, to get better, and really, why not? If you've ever watched a competitive game, you already know the thrill of landing the decisive click, the final step towards victory. It's a parallel world where whatever's happening in your real life, you can always retreat into your online bubble. But the problem with competitive games is that you're responsible for and affected by others people's enjoyment. Just like Dofus, competitive games give you the thrill of being on a team, united by one goal, winning. But while in Dofus you fight the game, in competitive games you fight the players. And that's a totally different motivation, and that motivation has a dark side, one we've all witnessed: toxicity. There's an example I find both telling and disturbing. Researchers ran an experiment where they played 15 matches of League of Legends at different ranks: bronze, gold, and diamond. After analyzing the data, they found out that although more experienced players were slightly more toxic, toxicity was everywhere. Experienced players insulted based on gameplay and mechanics, you should have flashing notes, while beginners are stuck to generic insults and complaints. The overall takeaway: of the 45 games, only 9 had no toxic behavior. That's 9 out of 45, without even seeing the opposing team's chat. On average, each game contains 6 toxic messages. When rivalry becomes toxic, in competitive games, can we still call it fun? Toxic players make up a huge part of competitive communities, driven only by a desire to win, to be better, to crush opponents, sometimes through gameplay, sometimes through words, just to feel superior, to teammates, to enemies, anyone. This vicious cycle we fall into does have remedies. Instead of being driven by victory or ego, it seems obvious we should play for fun, for the joy of sharing time with friends, or to improve in an absolute sense, without comparison, because there's always gonna be someone better than us. But that's theory. Reality is different. Players aren't always rational. There's a proven link between toxicity and defeat. Toxicity often shows up towards the end of a match when the result is basically sealed. Toxicity becomes inevitable. When we lose, we insult. And that's because of one thing. Ultimately, as I said, it all depends on the players, triaders and casuals, but it goes beyond that. The key issue is the distance you put between your in-game performance and how you see yourself. That competition doesn't define who you are. You're not a better or worse person because of how you play, and that's the real root of toxic behavior. It's also one of the most crucial points, separating your real life from your gaming life. While some lose their hair over competition, others find online worlds that feel better, fairer, beautiful and open. They're not chasing performance or validation, they're escaping. On GTA RP, you can become a different version of yourself. Millionaire, criminal, cop, whatever you want. On Minecraft, you build your own world, your own adventure, your own rules. On Outer Wild, you travel from planet to planet, mesmerized by puzzles and bathed in enchanting music. And for the most immersive experience, you put on a VR headset and everything around you disappears, replaced by whatever you dream of instantly. That's also part of why we love video games, escape or catharsis, a complete pause from the problems of our daily lives, in a world designed to make us feel good. But what happens when it all stops? When, after dozens of hours, you've finally seen everything the game has to offer, or worse, when the game ends, that empty feeling, you try to fill it with another game, or that moment when you have to return to reality. For some, the link between games and real life can be lucrative. Some even turn their second life into a springboard. You may have heard of Never Die. Let me explain quickly his story. He was a player of Entropia Universe, yes, that game, and let's be honest, it looked rough. He bought a virtual island for $1,100 and built a massive nightclub on it. Watch the trailer and think carefully, good or bad investment? What an experience, huh? To answer the question I asked, well, it turned out to be an excellent investment. He sold the island 5 years later for $635,000. That's a 635% return, which blows my saving account out of the water, and a profit of $535,000 in 5 years. I offer you another success story, and Shi Shang, the Rockefeller of Second Life. Real name Aileen Graff, was the first woman to earn $1 million on the internet. She started by giving sex ed classes to build a small base income. We won't go into details here. Then made a whole fortune of flipping virtual real estate to the tune of $1 million. Those are company files and the website still exists. Pretty modern, right? Those two examples are fascinating because it shows how real the virtual can become. But let's take something more relatable, more grounded, that can resonate to you and me. Some games can actually connect to real life and even aim to improve it. Celeste makes a player reflect on their inner demons. In Celeste, the goal is to help Madeline climb a mountain, and the villain in the story is Madeline, the dark version of the heroine. The game explores depression and fights it using poetic metaphors as beautiful as its music. Playing Celeste feels like introspection, learning to accept and overcome your demons. And Celeste isn't an isolated case. Today, games are often used for medical, educational, and even marketing purposes. In hospitals, VR is used to confront addicts with their triggers in a safe way that lets them train for real-world control. In schools, educational games help kids learn through play. I remember learning about sun protection and recycling while playing on the kindergarten's computer. In marketing, you'll find games that rewards you with prizes, while teaching you about a brand, and while the brand learns everything about your personal data. Gaming is a tool that makes working more enjoyable in many areas. Immersing yourself online to grow financially or emotionally, that's one of the biggest benefits of video games. But we can't deny that for some, it's not an opportunity, but more like a curse. I found tons of testimonials about Second Life, as its name indicates, a game meant to let you live a second life online, and one that some people get a little too attached to, like this man whose story was picked up by the press. Married in real life, but also married online to another woman. Together they had a virtual mortgage, virtual dogs, and went on virtual shopping trips and motorcycle rides. Basically, all the routines of real life, except he preferred doing them online. Meanwhile, his real-life wife endured the consequences of his second life. The article asked the sharp question, if you get married in roleplay, is it cheating? What part of reality is left? At that level of commitment, we can ask ourselves. I also found tons of posts about women, sometimes old ones, like this mother who's been playing from 8 AM to 2 AM every day for 9 years. She quit her job to become an escort in the game, and her son misses her. She's been absent from his and his father's daily life. One line from those testimonials struck me. There's no balance between Second Life and real life, you only live once. These are no longer games for escaping, for unique or even paranormal experiences. They're games to avoid reality and subtly push aside little by little real problems, real goals. And with games like these, the line between passion and prison becomes thinner and thinner. If we step back to understand all those dynamics, with one side why we play the game and on the other side how the game starts playing us, I'd say MMORPGs, competitive games, contemplative games, they all bring us joy through their social nature, their sense of progress, and their capacity to lift us out of daily struggles. While there's good to be found in these hobbies, there's also excesses that psychologists call video game disorder. By definition, it happens when gaming negatively impacts your quality of life. when you're tired, demotivated, frustrated, or sad because of a game. It sounds absurd, but also very familiar. When your self-worth comes from gaming, when in-game goals become life goals, those games can make you unhappy. While friendship and teamwork in games improves our lives, the extreme, preferring virtual relationships over real ones, is also known to be harmful. Finally, the two biggest risk factors for gaming disorder are player competition and emotional escape. All these games can bring distress when used to compensate for something deeper, like any addiction. When the motivation is wrong, video games can make you unhappy. Video games have always been and will always be my greatest hobby, and I think for me, like for you, they sometimes cause real frustration. I have two friends who quit entirely. One played League of Legends, the other CSGO. You can probably guess the kind of toll those games took on them. They say they are happier now, without games. Even though I respect that choice, I still think video games have so much to offer me, and I'd have a lot to lose by giving them up. But through this video, I wanted us to remember how to enjoy them, so that video games can continue to make us happy.